keep up that good work. Good evening and welcome to the grounds of the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, where on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, the 66th Chelsea Flower Show opens its gates to members of the Royal Horticultural Society. The exhibitors are still busy working away, trying to improve on that excellence achieved in previous years. Everyone striving for perfection, even with lovely golden trolleys like this. Everyone growing for gold.
How do you grow plants in such perfect condition? You know, when they're planning their exhibits in the months before, not even the most experienced nurserymen and women can guarantee that they're going to have their plants ready to flower in time. And that's not surprising when you consider the weather problems. Think of this year. After a devastating winter, it was followed by Mediterranean heat, some sun. That was followed by strong winds, cold winds, torrential rain. Even this morning, we had ground frosts. And yet, look at this. The flowers of an English summer. Astilbes in multiple colours. Old English peonies, and then to the more exotic hardy plants, the Chinese regalia lilies with their long tubes and open mouths, and these American hybrids, a very different breed of lily, orange flowers and yellow, flowering at their peak a month before normal, waiting to be admired.
A lovely rock feature designed by David Stevens. And note that word design, because out here on the embankment, garden planning is quite as important as good quality plants and flowers. And keep your ears and eyes open. There are lots of lessons that can be learned from exhibits like these. You don't build an exhibit without a lot of good common sense gardening behind it. But of course, May, it's rhododendron time. Some wag once said that it should be the Rhododendron Horticultural Society, not the Royal Horticultural Society. But they come in all sizes, from Rhododendron giganteum down to the more modest-sized Eucusiaminum hybrids. This one's called Chelsea 70 to make the point. But how do growers get them to flower to the week when 2 months ago they're in tight bud? Roy Lancaster went down to meet one of our top rhododendron growers, Mr. Arthur George, at his nursery near Godalming to find out.
Arthur, are you sure rhododendron's going to be ready on time?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure.
These, of course, are well in advance. This is one of the earliest flowering of all the rhododendrons, isn't it?
Yes, this is the earliest. Precox.
One of the most popular ones. You know, I was looking all the way, I was driving along the road this morning from Hindhead, and how common the rhododendron ponticum is there. It flourishes. Now, that suggests very special conditions.
Yes, you must have an acid soil. That is the vital.
So people who have gardens on chalk or limey soils, are you saying they can't grow rhododendrons, or is there some special way they can cultivate them?
Well, they certainly can't grow them in the ground unless they use sequestrine or have them in raised beds.
Or presumably in tubs or pots.
Or, tubs and pots, yes, with a special acid soil. And a good thing to remember is that the rhododendron rather likes to be root-bound, so they don't want to put it in too big a pot.
But there are rhododendrons, I take it, that need some kind of shelter.
Yes, the big leaf rhododendrons need shelter, and certain slightly tender varieties also need some woodland shelter.
So you're growing them here on your own property in woodland. Any of those in flower now?
Yes, we have rhododendron rocket, which is a very large growing one, to about 25 feet, and rhododendron Bo Peep, which is yellow, and that gets to about 7 to 8 feet.
So those are flowering now. Praecox will be finished by the end of the month. What about the ones that you're growing for the show now?
Yes, they're all been balled up, and they are all in position. This is one of the houses I use for forcing the rhododendron for Chelsea. But it is a cold house.
Right. So the things you're providing are warmth from the shelter, the shade from the sun, and all these have been lifted how long ago?
These were lifted last week, all in Hessian.
So these are azaleas?
These are azaleas which flower without any foliage. And these are the buds on the terminals.
Big fat buds there, very distinctive there, and against the tiny buds of the leaf ones. I see you've got rhododendrons as well, some nice big ones over those. Do they need the same treatment as the azaleas?
Oh yes, they need exactly the same treatment.
Let's have a look at some of those.
These are hardy hybrids in various varieties here.
How long have they been in this house?
They've been here about a week.
And how can you tell when those buds, those big fat flower buds already?
Well, I do it all by feeling. Once they become sticky, then it means the sap is rising and the flower bud will start to swell.
Well, that must be quite a spectacular sight when it's in full flower. And a root ball like that. How on earth did he get it in here?
By brute force and ignorance.
That's nothing compared with this one. Now, this is rhododendron yakushimanum.
Yakushimanum.
Now, all those who reckon to know anything about rhododendron say this is one of the finest of its kind. Now, why is that?
Well, it's hardy, compact, easy to grow, good foliage, very good flowers, very suitable for a small garden.
You say the foliage is glossy on top?
Glossy on top and has this marvellous indementum underneath.
Now, this is a very fine specimen. How old would this be?
It's about 22, 23 years old.
An heirloom.
Yes.
Don't put a price on that now. What's that going to be looking like at Chelsea?
It's going to be absolutely in perfect bloom.
Full flower?
Full flower, pink and white flowers.
Well, really impressed with these rhododendrons, Arthur. It just shows what carefully controlled temperatures and watering can do. These flower buds have opened just in time. What variety is this?
This is Mrs. Furnival's daughter.
Cripes, this is her daughter. I won't like to be carrying Mrs. Furnival. Where's it going?
It's going up into this hole here.
Down it goes. That looks superb. Now, Arthur, what have you done with that prize specimen Yakushimanum?
That's round the corner here.
Oh, yes. Is that everything you expected?
Absolutely everything.
I guess it's one of your favourites.
It is my favourite rhododendron. It always performs very well.
Arthur, as a successful and long-established nurseryman and grower, why do you continue exhibiting at Chelsea?
Well, I think for gardeners, Chelsea is the finest exhibition in the world.
It's a kind of shop window to you, in other
Absolute
words.
shop window, yes.
All your new varieties, new hybrids.
That's right, yes.
Well, I wish you as much success with your exhibit as you've had with this lovely Yakushimanum.
Seems a far cry from those stepped fronts in this old medieval city of Ghent to horticulture, but strange though it may seem, a Belgian nearly 2 centuries ago went to one of the very early Royal Horticultural Society meetings in London, and he thought it was such a good idea, came back here in an old pub called the Frascati, set up exactly the same sort of meetings, and their shows of course grew to the size of the great Floralies held every 5 years. But their number one speciality in this district, of course, is the indoor azalea. To see these plants at their best, it's well worth visiting the weekend flower market in Ghent. Indoor azaleas are as popular with the Belgians as they are with us at home, and all around Ghent and Bruges are glasshouses devoted to the production of these colourful houseplants. Walk the streets of any of the nursery growing areas and you'll see homes like this, and in behind them the nursery production units, and the hallmark of every good nursery. Not a sign of weed, everything clean, immaculate and in its place. And these are the typical beds that you find for indoor azalea production. It's worth perhaps a quick lesson in the difference. Outside in the garden we have the Japanese azaleas with rather smaller leaves and lighter green, and the indoor or India azalea is darker and bigger. You need to ask if you're buying plants to make absolutely sure, because these Indian azaleas won't take frost. And here's a rooted cutting. Once this gets stiff enough, then the named varieties that we want are grafted on the top. It's what I call an inverted saddle graft, shaped like that. And they have rather interesting little closed pegs to hold the graft in place. If you look quite closely, you can see this was grafted last autumn, September, October, and already it's been pinched and producing a little head. Alongside it, the bigger plant, which was grafted last spring, so you can see the extra growth made with one summer. But the taller the stem, when you're growing standards, the longer it takes. And after 5 years, they're into this size, and all around me are the different stages. Mr. Gregoire grows over 100 different varieties and an immense range of colours. And from 5-year-old specimens to 25 years old and even 30, and these big specimens will have been to several of their international shows like the Floriard. These are some of the first reserves. They weren't even good enough to go to Dusseldorf this week, and when those big specimens come back, they snap out the dead flowers with a bit of stem so they break again. And there's a good tip here too for any of you with azaleas at home. Always keep that wet mark for an inch up the stem. And the sign of a really skilled grower, of course, is the size of plant that he can grow on just a modest root ball. Look at the size of that and the head. Second only to the azalea production is the green house plants, and the Belgians are masters at that. And you won't see a more efficient production unit than this. Very nearly everything is automatic. The barrels here full of plant foods, all carefully calibrated, and each bench gets the kind of water it requires and the feed that it needs at the different levels. And if you listen, you can just hear the vents starting to open as the temperature rises, because when the sun comes out, the shading can close. And then when the sun goes in, well, and of course the shading pulls back again. And the atmosphere, if we need extra carbon dioxide to make that leafy growth, then that's pumped in too. And it just stretches on almost as far as the eye can see. And if you've wondered how people get in to pick the plants up, well, in the benches they move. We just have one path, and you can see it opens up so that you can walk down to get at the plants. And that watering, each plant standing its own little guttering, almost like roof guttering, and a 3mm film of water comes through, food in it when required, and the plant just draws up what it wants, and the surplus is all drained away again. And this is just one house. There are 14 more stretching off on both sides. Goodness knows how many people it takes to look after this lot. Mr. Moritz van Nuremberg, you're secretary of one of two trade associations here. Can you give me some idea of how big an area this is and how many people are employed growing plants?
Well, in these nurseries are working about 45 people, and this nursery is about 3 hectares under glass. But this is only one of the 4 this company owns.
So they've got 3 more, and it's nearly 8 acres, if I get the metrication right.
It's about that, yes.
Now, how important is the pot plant business to Britain to you?
Well, we export about 10% of our pot plants to Britain, even a little bit more, and the total production is about more than 100 million pot plants.
And so every time we walk down one of these benches, 1 in 10 plants is going to come to Britain?
That's right, yes.
And what about the number of people involved in the industry? What are the trends?
Well, there are about 10,000 people involved in the industry, and the trend is that it's keeping up all the time. The last years, even an increase again of people involved in the sector.
And how productive are they?
Well, productivity was increased a lot last years. We can say that one man is producing about 2.5 times more than 10 years ago.
And why Chelsea? I mean, you have all this trade, so many pot plants going across. Why do the Belgians need to come to Chelsea?
Well, it's an important market for us, first of all. Secondly, we want to show every year our quality products to the British people. And we believe we can increase still our marketing share, and we can increase consumption in Britain too.
Whilst the Belgian exhibit is pretty well finished, outside there's lots to be done. Lorries everywhere, people carrying, wheeling, sweeping, hammering, sawing. And here, haven't even started. This is where the 30 horticultural societies are competing for the best window box. And you can bet your life that those amateurs are quite as keen to see that their pelargoniums, geraniums, fuchsias and silver leaf plants are quite as good as the professionals.
Another popular group of houseplants are the cacti. They come in a great variety of shapes and sizes and colours. And if you're one of those people who don't reckon to have green fingers, well, these are the plants for you, because some of them at least seem to thrive on neglect. They're also plants ideal for kids, easy to grow from young specimens. And it was as a kid, 5 years old, that Brian Goody bought his first cactus. At the age of 15, what had then become a great hobby, a passionate hobby, became his profession. He now has one of the finest collections of cacti in the country. Only the 3rd of April, Brian, and already you preparing for Chelsea?
No, this display's for the Royal Horticultural Society show next week.
Do you still have that original cactus you bought when you were 5?
Yes, it's over there.
And the small one next to it, I take it, is the same kind, the sort of size you would have had at 5 years old?
Yes, yeah.
Long way from then to a display like this. Now tell me about some of these special varieties that you have. What's the big one in the middle?
That's Hildwintria orispina. It's a very free-flowering, trailing cactus. That will be in flower for the next week's show, hopefully. That will go on flowering throughout the summer, on and off.
No common names for these cactus?
That's the old man cactus.
Lovely white hairy one. Does that flower too?
Only when it gets old, which will be 40 or 50 years.
What about the one there where they've got several plants in the same bowl?
The Neopateria, they're spring flowering. As you can see, they're very attractive.
There are quite a few here, I see, already in flower. Are you going to have any in flower for Chelsea?
Well, we're very late with flowers this year. At the moment, we should have more in flower than what we have. Hopefully, by Chelsea, we'll have an abundance of flower.
I always thought cacti were easy to grow. Let's say I'm buying a small cactus, as you would from a market store, maybe, or a nursery. What should I do with that?
Well, this is the sort of plant you might buy from a supermarket or garden centre that's in need of repotting.
So the first thing you're doing, you're going to knock that out.
We're going to knock it out.
What sort of size of pot are you going to put it in?
Well, we're going to put it in this nice little bowl.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to knock some of the...
Nice root system there, isn't there?
Yeah, we'll have to knock some of the surplus compost off.
That's not going to damage the roots, is it?
No, as long as you're very careful how you handle them.
Right.
It's going into a low bowl, so...
Take a bit more off. You've lots of little babies around that big one, aren't there? Could you detach those, Brian?
Well, I wouldn't advise it. It'd rather spoil the plant. If you leave them on, it'll make a very nice clump.
Right. And that compost you're using, is that your own compost?
It's a prescription mix that we get made up. It's very open. You must ensure that there's plenty of grit in the compost.
Right, I can see that. I can hear it grating, yes. And that ensures free drainage. And how often would you be repotting your cactus?
Well, I would recommend repotting cacti each year. Far too many people buy a cactus and leave it on the windowsill.
Right.
Then it does nothing for them.
Yeah. Now, it's one thing repotting some of these small ones, like that one. What happens when you go into a great spiny plant like that? How do you deal with that?
Oh, it's not too bad at all.
Don't you need leather gloves?
No. You're frightened of damaging the plant if you start using gloves.
And what about watering? Are you doing that once a week or once a month or whatever?
Well, in hot weather, twice a week.
Yeah.
Water from the top. Don't submerge your plants because you're going to rot the roots if they get too wet.
Right.
Don't do this in bright sunshine, by the way. You could scorch the body of the plant.
I see. Can you grow them on any windowsill? Does it have to be sunny?
They must have a sunny position to be happy. You don't buy cacti and put them in dark corners. No. They don't like it.
When it comes to packing them for a Chelsea flower show, what kind of problems do you have?
Oh, with a plant with a hilled winter, a
big sprawly one?
Yes, we have to make sure, hope that we don't go over too many bumps in the van.
I don't believe that. What about all these small ones then?
Well, most of the small flowering plants will pack into the plastic trays and we pad them with newspaper. We have to make sure that they don't touch when they're moving in the van. They'll damage each other.
I see you made it then, Brian. How long did it take you?
We set off at 2 o'clock this morning and arrived at 7.
How did the plants travel?
Well, very well. As you can see, there's plenty of flower there.
Is that a special one?
This is a Roya gibosa, and it's very unusual for it to have a full ring of flower, which it's managed this year.
Did you expect that to be in flowering time?
No. The hot weather a fortnight ago brought a lot of the flowers.
Just at its best now.
Yes.
Some more buds there waiting to open.
Yes,
Did you bring the golden tarantula?
Yes, there they are.
Ah! No broken legs?
No, they travelled...
What about some of the other special plants now? What about that lovely orange flowered one there?
Nota cactus has a big eye. It flowers each year at this time.
Very nice contrast against that kind of a grey bun beneath. And a green flowered sump, that's bound to be viridiflora, I'll get.
Echinacea viridiflorus. And sweet scented flowers.
Sweet scented flowers. Is that an easy one to grow?
Yes.
I like this one too.
Mammillaria zilmaniana. That's the best plant for the beginners.
Is that right? Easy?
Easy. It's reliable to flower. Keep it on a sunny windowsill and it'll flower for them.
How old would that plant be?
That's about 12 years old.
Well, you've some time to go before you finish your exhibit, but that plant's worth a prize on its own.
And if your collection gets a bit out of hand, then you might need a backdrop of the Mojave Desert, just as we have here in Kew. And the cactus are part of a collection which formed an exhibit way back in 1929, brought over by Mrs. Sherman Hoyt, an American. But now they're growing in just a tiny section of the Princess of Wales Conservatory. No, not our present Princess Diana. This was the Dowager Princess of Wales, Princess Augusta, who built the first conservatory here at Kew and started the Botanic Gardens way back in 1759. But the modern building's quite outstanding, really spectacular outside, but inside it has all the very latest technology. The atmosphere in each of the compartments is checked every 2 minutes and adjusted for temperature and humidity. Quite a remarkable place. And at the other end of the conservatory, then, in this compartment, all their plants for this year's show, even climbers, 20 feet high up a rope. And they just need to untie the rope, drop it down, pop them on the lorry, and then back on the show site they can be lifted up again. 50-foot square they have to fill with these Victorian-style plants, very much the feeling of Victoriana. And it'll be a twin exhibit, because Kew has teamed up with Morris Arboretum in Philadelphia. You know what these botanic gardens are. They're busy exchanging people and plants all the way around the world. And at the Philadelphia Flower Show, what the Americans call the largest undercover flower show in the world, they reconstructed an old Victorian conservatory and filled it with those potted palms. And here at Kew for Chelsea, what we think is the biggest outdoor flower show in the world, they're doing exactly the same. And in this narrow workshop at the back of the orangery, then they're busy building this replica of the Victorian conservatory. Remember the site, 52 feet by 48, and arches, best part of 13 feet high. Actually, they're a bit worried whether some of these are going to go through the door.
You can see through that one, can't you?
As you can see, they managed it. It may not be the largest exhibit at Chelsea, but by golly, it's one of the most impressive. It's filled with plants of many kinds, plants grown for their foliage value, as well as some grown for their flowers. There's even a model there of a Victorian fernery, which is at present being restored at the Morris Arboretum in Philadelphia. And to top it all, they've even got one of the original urns, which was used at the Great Exhibition at Crystal Palace in 1851. And it's filled with Cymbidium orchids.
It wouldn't be the Chelsea show without roses, and on St George's Day the rosarians up and down the country will just be tenderly touching those growths to see how strong they are. But if you mention roses and rosarians, then you think of Hitchin and Harkness. For generations they've been growing roses. Peter, I think you're third generation, aren't you?
Fourth generation, actually, Peter, yes. And although you say Hitchin and Harkness, we didn't actually start in Hitchin. If you want the story, it goes right back to fourpence in Northumberland.
Well, come on then. How's fourpence in Northumberland?
Well, the 1860s, two small boys wanted to grow things, and they invested twopence each of pocket money in wallflower seed, sowed the seed, and they made £2 out of their fourpence.
Marvellous story. And to bring us right up to date, what happens here then?
Well, this is our hybridizing house. This is where we try to create new varieties of roses. And these are the varieties which are in fact the mothers, these mother plants. When we get the flowers coming, we take all the petals off, and then we take all the stamens off, which would normally carry pollen and be the male part of the flower. We do that so we don't get a variety pollinating itself. And having done that, we get pollen from another rose, which is the father, if you like, and we apply that pollen onto the pistils of the mother plant, which is still sitting here. That develops a seed pod, and every seed is a potential new variety of rose.
Well, now, where's the seed sowing?
Oh, just in there, Peter.
Now, the company's been in business for over 100 years. Have you been raising new varieties of roses all that time?
Well, no, only since 1961. My brother Jack started the breeding, and in his first year he made 11,000 crosses and got over 90,000 seeds.
Goodness. And from those 90,000 seeds, then how many winners come?
Oh, well, you have to look at them for about 6 or 7 years, but we were able to introduce 5. We had 5 good ones out of that first batch.
And they'd be raised in beds like these?
Yes, exactly like these. Last year's seed pods sown in these beds after giving a bit of cold treatment.
Oh, so what does that mean? They dip in the fridge?
Yes, that's right. If they're chilled, they like to have the hard casing softened up a bit.
And then when would they be sown?
They're normally sown towards the end of January, early February time, about 10 to 12 weeks ago from what you're looking at now.
And how long before you see that first touch of colour then?
Well, there's a little bud there. I reckon he'll probably be flowering about Chelsea week. What we go on when we're selecting is a little bit of hunch and experience combined, but you can see what colour the rose is going to be, and you can tell how many petals it has got, and you can also get some idea of vigour, and also, of course, fragrance.
And then how many go outside?
We should probably propagate about 2,000 out of doors, 5 of each, that's about 10,000 plants, just for research, basically.
Could you take us through then, very quickly, the way that you rose growers produce a bush for the garden?
Yes, well, from the seedling stage, we will let it grow a bit. Then we take a budding eye, which is a little growing point from the plant, and we will insert that into a wild rose stock that we have planted out of doors.
Yes, you plant the stock in the spring.
You plant the stock in the spring, that's correct.
That would grow a bit, and then by June you do the budding.
By June the sap is flowing, and so you can insert the little budding eye. You then have to leave it alone until the winter, and then you take the top of the wild plant off, so that you've got a cutaway portion showing. And then the following 6 months, when summer comes round again, that shoot has grown out, and if you're lucky, it will give you some nice flowers to look at in summer. And it's at that stage that for the first time we know what our rose is going to be like out of doors that we've pollinated 2 years before.
Well, in this house 3, what happens in here?
Well, these are where we grow the roses for the actual show, the cut roses to be staged on the stand.
And who looks after all this then?
Oh, my nephews Robert and Philip. They're the 5th generation of the family.
But they're the ones with the bitten fingernails then, are they?
They have particularly worried foreheads at this time of year, that's right.
And how are we in terms of timing?
Well, if they come too quickly, we can always cut the flower, and we have a convenient place of keeping them in a cold store. We have a friendly butcher who always lets us use part of his space for Chelsea.
So they come smelling a fillet steak, do
Well, I hope not.
Well, shall I just dispose?
No, don't do that. No, you mustn't do that, because if you take those off, that will advance the flowering. And as things are this year, we don't want the flowering to be put forward any more than it is. Not on this variety, anyway.
Well, it won't make that much difference, will it?
Oh, it could make a vital 4 days difference, yes.
Well, Philip, how's it going? Container roses look pretty good.
Excellent this year, Peter. Plenty of flower, nice bushy plants.
But where are the cut bloom? I mean, all the bowls are empty.
Well, cut flowers, we bring those up on Monday. They're in the cold store, and some still waiting to be cut in the glass houses at the moment.
And what sort of showing have you got? A good lot?
Oh, they'll be nice this year. Good size, good colours.
Yeah. And what have we got here then? Just 2 runners, so to speak?
Well, we've got 2 of the new ones there. This one's Tristingle, which is one which we've named to help the Children's Society.
Yes, and the yellow?
And the yellow one is Sweet Magic, which we're introducing to Pat Dixon in Northern Ireland this year.
Wait to see those bowls fall. Wish you every success.
Thank you very much, Peter.
I've just been talking to Alan Sawyer, the show manager. Now, he's been looking round, and he reckons that, dare I say it, this Chelsea show is going to be one of the best ever, and I'm inclined to agree with him. And we'll be back at the Chelsea show on BBC 2 on Wednesday night, so why not join us?
And if you're thinking of coming, well, then the show opens to members on Tuesday from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. You can join the society at the gate, or for the general public, Wednesday and Thursday, 8 till 8 again, or on Friday from 8 till 5. Meantime, here, the work continues. Some parts of the stand's pretty well complete, others much to do. I think on that old Fenland cart they'll have to nail those great cabbage. Marvellous, the vegetables and the bright colours of them. And you'll bring a notebook too, because there's lots of things to note. The way that a good herbaceous border has groups of plants, 4 or 5 of a different kind. And mix the leaves too, the broad in front of the straighter kinds. Meantime, there are plants here to label, lots to water, 3 more lorry loads of fuchsias to bring in. And outside, on that bank, the garden's very nearly complete to build the greatest flower show on earth.